In this one, I'm going to show you how to add text to your CapCut videos with animation and effects. So from the top menu on the left, just hit text. You see where it says default text. You can just drag the word default text down to the timeline. You could drag the corners to resize the text. And you can use that little icon underneath to rotate it. If you go over to the top right, you see text, animation, tracking, and text-to-speech. In this video, I'm just going to cover text and animation. I'll cover tracking and text-to-speech in their own separate videos. Starting with the Basic tab, highlight where it says Default Text and replace it with your own text. Underneath you see Font, and from the drop-down menu you can select from the collection of fonts. You could also use the font slider as another way to change the size of the text. You have the style options for bold, underline, italic. Click the color option. You see a bunch of different ways you can choose a color. You could also use the eyedropper tool and you can select the color from within the video. Then on the preset styles, you have some pre-made color designs. You can try those out. So at any time, if you want to revert back from one of the preset styles, just click on that first icon with the circle and line. Next, you have the option for spacing, and you can set the distance between the characters or the distance between the lines. Next, you can see you have a few options for text alignment. Position and size again gives you the sliders so you can scale the size of your text. And underneath that, you have position X and Y, so you can fine-tune the position on the X or the Y axis. Underneath that rotate, you can fine-tune the angle of the rotation. Then for blend, it's just a simple opacity slider. When add stroke to your text, hit the check mark next to stroke. Choose your color and use the slider to change the thickness. Background is just basic. It'll give you a background behind your text, or the second option will contour the background around your text. You do have some options to change the color. You have a slider for opacity. You could round out the edges, change the height, width, and the X and Y offset. Next, you have an option for glow. You can check that box. You can pick a glow color. You get the slider for intensity and for the range. And the last one in the basic section is shadow, which I think is one of the most useful options. Most of the times it's good to use a drop shadow for your text to have it stand away from the background, and you can see it easier against the video background with multiple colors. So pick whatever color for your shadow. I'll just stick with the typical dark black. I'll move the text to the corner where you can see the shadow a little easier. You can see here the effect of the slider for opacity, blurriness, distance, and you can see angle, which makes it look like the light source is coming from a different direction. I just stick to the default settings. I think the drop shadow looks pretty good. And if you need to reset any of these settings, you could double click on the word for each one and it'll reset it back to default values. And that goes for any setting in CapCut. If you want to bring the value back to default, just double click on the name of the setting. On the bubble tab, you get some comic bubble looking effects. There's some interesting ones that look like banners or even something you can use as a lower thirds. Got some interesting ones here that look like a little notepad, like this one here. So look around, you might find something useful. On the next tab, you see effects, and you see a bunch of colorful pre-made artifacts. Next is animation. If you go on top next to text, you see the word animation. Click on it, and you see options for in, out, and loop. So in will create an animation of how your text will first appear on the screen, Out would be an animation of how it disappears off the screen, and loop will be an animation that repeats between the in and the out. So many of them look interesting. Give them a try. Just keep clicking over and over to resample them. You can change the duration of the in animation with the slider right here. If you notice on the text clip, on the lower edge it has a thin line on the left side, which indicates it has an in animation. Once you set an out animation, you see another thin line on the lower right side. There's a slider on the right side to set the duration of the out animation. On the bottom you have a slider to adjust the speed of the loop. And if you want to turn off any of the animations, you can click on this first icon here with the circle and line. I'm going to turn off the loop and just keep the animation for the in and the out. If you go over to the left side, you still have a few more options. Effects are the same effects that you've seen before. The interesting one here is text templates. And this is a large collection of pre-made animated text effects. Here you see, for example, the subscribe animation. And we'll try that one out. I'll drag it to the timeline. And here I'm just going to recreate the 3 animations you saw at the intro to this video. So with this first one, for example, I want to show you that you can change the text for any of these text templates. Just go over to the upper right where it says text, and then the basic tab. Underneath where it says the one paragraph is where you highlight the text. Below you get a few options. You could change the scale, the position, or the rotation. And here I'll add the other 2 text templates. I'm just going to leave them with the default text. So that's it for this video, covering some of the basic options you have to create text in CapCut. They have a lot of text templates and pre-made animations you can start off with, so explore and try some of them out. I'll cover additional options like text-to-speech and auto captions in their own separate videos.